Your worst one.
No.
I really didn't plan that.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the Monday, December 4th, 2017 City Council meeting to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman McHenry.
Here.
Alderman Glad.
Here.
Alderman Santee.
Here.
Alderman Devine.
Here.
Alderwoman Condon.
Here.
Alderman Curry.
Here.
Alderman Schaefer.
Here.
Please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, I'd like to call to order the public hearing concerning the City of McHenry 2017 proposed tax levy ordinance in the amount of $4,618,786, representing a 0% increase above the 2016 tax levy extension. Let the record show the public hearing is called to order at 7:04. At this time, I'm opening it up for public input. Is there anyone in the public that would like to talk on behalf of the public hearing? There being no additional public input, I am looking for a motion to close the public hearing at this time. Alderman Santee?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Alderman Glab? Second. Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Santee.
Yes.
Alderman Glad.
Yes.
Alderwoman Condon.
Yes.
Alderman Devine.
Yes.
Alderman McHenry.
Yes.
Alderman Schaefer.
Yes.
Alderman Curry.
Yes. Thank you, Council. Moving on to agenda number 5, I am looking for a motion to adopt an ordinance for the levy of taxes for the year 2017 in the amount of $4,618,786. Alderman Curry.
I'll make the motion to adopt the tax levy for 2017-18 in the amount of $4,618,786.
Thank you. Have a second? Alderman McHenry.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on this item? Alderman Glad.
Yeah, I just want to say that, once again, we're keeping it at zero, as far as, just so everybody realizes that this is an appropriation and that, you know, people open up their tax statement, all of a sudden it's a couple bucks more, a couple bucks less. It all depends on what their EAV changes and all that. But basically, the portion that the city collects remains the same.
Thank you. Alderman Curry.
Yeah, just to add to that, it remains, remain the same from what it was last year, but I'll remind everyone that last year we actually reduced the levy by 3%, so in effect we're continuing that at a reduced level, and counting that reduction has been 7 years now, I believe, that we've had either a flat or a reduced levy.
Any other discussion on this item by council? Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Curry.
Yes.
Alderman McHenry.
Yes.
Alderman Schaefer.
Yes.
Alderman Glad.
Yes.
Alderwoman Condon.
Yes.
Alderman Devine.
Yes.
Alderman Santee.
Yes. Thank you, council. And at this time, I'm going to open it up to McHenry Area Chamber of Commerce for their quarterly update. If you could please, Denny, come up to the podium.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Denny Norton. I'm owner of Performance Unlimited Rex Towing. I'm also the chairman of the McHenry Area Chamber Board of Directors. On behalf of myself and fellow board members, Mike Marachek from Epic Cycles, Sandy Sherman from First Light Home Care, Anita Camara, Cordy Brown, Frank Hostica, our Chamber Membership Director and Legal Shield, and our Chamber President, Kate Bates. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to present our 2017 Chamber Review. 2017 was a good year for the McHenry Area Chamber. Our events were well attended. Membership remained steady, making a successful finish to a productive year. As we start, please keep in mind there's very little that the Chamber does, including Fiesta Days, that doesn't have the members' best interest at heart. All of our events are designed to aid our members in the goal to connect with not only with other businesses, but with other community members as well. So with that, okay.
Thank you, Dan. I can see I'm right next to Chief Burke. Is that deliberate? Is that deliberate, Chief?
Maybe can.
Okay, I parked correctly today, though, I want you to know that. Wore my seatbelt, too. Actually, he is outstanding, and I'd like to in person congratulate you on becoming chief. Job well done. I also want to congratulate you people on City Council for running the city so fiscally sound and being able to be in a position that you're able to hold tight on the levy. It's very much appreciated by citizen K. Rao Bates, too, and I'm sure many, many other citizens as well, and very impressive. First of all, let us review the 2017 year in review. And we're going to start with our membership activities, and ribbon cuttings is what we'll start with first. The Chamber has been at the forefront of welcoming businesses into the area, ribbon cuttings and grand celebration. But also we've had the city staff who has been absolutely excellent in attending it. We've had officials there such as Mayor Jett, Chamber ambassadors, Jerry Condon has been a few of these ribbon cuttings, and members of our board of directors. These ribbon cuttings give new businesses a head start as the Chamber makes certain that these new organizations are well promoted in the Northwest Herald as well as on the Chamber Facebook page and our information sources that reach out into the community. The Chamber hosted 30 ribbon cuttings in 2017. Now let's talk about mixers. Mixers are in reality open houses that showcase a business establishment such as Gary Lane Auto Group you've seen in the past too. But it also encourages members to meet newer organizations of our business community. This is often where lasting and solid business relationships do start. To helping businesses to grow. The Chamber hosted 33 mixers during 2017. Luncheons. The Chamber during 2017 produced the State of McHenry, our Economic Development Luncheon in February. This luncheon caters to the heads of industry, health, banking, real estate, and other sectors that have a vested interest in the economic health of our community. In 2018, the Chamber is hoping to expand industry-focused luncheons, and we probably look to some of the staff to help us with that and give us some ideas on where they feel that the need is based. The Chamber also hosts a variety of luncheons and breakfasts for our area's smaller organizations, such as our popular Never Eat Alone luncheons, encouraging those small businesses to gather together for informal networking at local restaurants. And also we host the Chamber Lunch and Learns. You can go, that's another Never Eat Alone, there you go. A Chamber Lunch and Learn where members are trained in areas needed to grow businesses. The Chamber hosted 12 Never Eat Alone luncheons and 20 Lunch and Learns during 2017. Now, Wings is our women's luncheon, which focuses on networking, but also on relevant issues affecting today's women in the workplace. The Chamber hosted 6 Wings luncheons during 2017. And as long as we're talking about the ladies, the next slide will show us the girls' night out.
Oh, sorry.
I
I hit the button.
tried just started. It's not that boring yet. But time will come, it'll get boring. I get there too. But this is one of our girls' nights out, and here we are at Addison's. And these ladies started getting together around 2012. We started with 6 of us, and it was really to support area restaurants during a very difficult time in the recession. Today, we have between 20 and 25 women typically in attendance, and we have had 15 girls' night outs during 2017. Networking scrambles. Okay, our networking scrambles are structured networking luncheons where 150 to 190 business professionals are scrambled over 4 courses at specially designed tables for each attendee. The Chamber hosted at McHenry Country Club 2 scrambles during 2017, and our reviews from the scrambles by people that attended have been absolutely outstanding. Okay, let's go on to referral groups. Referral groups are small chamber groups of 10 to 40 business owners from non-competing businesses. These groups are designed to act as a sales force for each other as they grow together through informal networking. Referral groups also have the added attraction of member growth in leadership as well as in public speaking. We see lives changed through these referral groups, confidence gained. The Chamber has 8 of these smaller groups, which have run 96 meetings during 2017. And an added advantage of these groups is that they support twice monthly each of the 8 local restaurants in our community. The Chamber's Young Professional Group. That is designed for those under 40 seeking to establish a community with others sharing the same demographic. We ran 12 young professional meetings during 2017. This is a passion of mine, just so you know that. I feel a strong young professional group can help us attract and retain top talent supporting industry in our community. We want to keep these people in McHenry and not in Chicago. Golf League. Our Golf League thrived this year, drawing golfers from multiple organizations connecting boat builders with bankers who met web designers. This is another unique way the Chamber connects people together. Now we're going to move on to our Chamber events. And just one quick thing to say, I want to repeat what our chairman, Denny Norton, said. Again, there is not one event produced by the McHenry Area Chamber of Commerce that we do not have our hearts of our members in mind. Annual dinner dance. Now, many of you wonderful people have supported this event through the years, and we really do appreciate that fact. What you may not realize is that the dinner dance is the Chamber's annual meeting. We kind of slipped that in there. But we do need to vote our board of directors onto the Chamber board annually at this particular function. That's why it's in January. Okay, let's go into the Chamber Expo. Oh, this is our dinner dance. You want to see Miss Bonnie there, Scott married up. And then, of course, I think you see Andy in the back. We got to get a better picture of Andy and Helen next year, than that particular one. But the Chamber Expo offers the opportunity for our area businesses to reach out to the community. The Chamber invests much in family drawing entertainment to make the event successful for our companies that are exhibiting. Got to see that. Okay, now we're going to the bulk outing. The Chamber draws multiple people to a day in the sun or hail, as some of you have experienced in past years, at McHenry Country Club. Our members have a chance to golf with friends and associates while meeting other organizations, and I think we have another picture too with that. Fiesta Days. Okay, Fiesta Days was a bit of a challenge in 2017. As many of you are aware, there was one puddle, Bill, wasn't there? A number of puddles throughout Peterson Park. And Pat Gorniak looked at me at one point and said, "What are you going to do, Kay?" And I said, "We got a festival to produce." And we have seen this movie before, we know what to do, and we got out the squeegees, that's what these guys are doing. We got out generators, and then Patel came later and we drained the park with the help of the city. Another person who came on board was Steve Buss, and I know you all know him. He brought out these industrial fans that helped dry that park. We also had straw. We put straw out so we could make it as dry as we could possibly get it. And I got to tell you, we opened on time, and part of that was due to our help with the city staff. They worked very, very hard and closely with us, and we're very, very thankful, for them. Keep going in. That shows you one of the night pictures. Another one. That was one of our really good nights. People ask me what I like about Fiesta Days, and frankly, there's a lot of stress in producing that event. I will tell you that. But this is what I like. This is what I like. This picture right here is when you see people that are actively enjoying themselves. And it's not just me, it's you people with your help in producing this event, and everyone in parks and the police, too, that are involved in it, and our 350 volunteers that get this event up and rolling. People love it and they have a good time, and that's what I like about Fiesta Days. There's another picture. You can see some of our different people that do the beer ships have gotten really snazzy. If we can go back to the Marin Angels, Derek. Too. You can see McHenry Savings Bank, and they're wearing these wonderful aprons, too. So that's part of the fun. And we're really encouraging the dressing up. And then, of course, you see Fiesta Days. We had a new amusement company last year. Now, we're only able to get that when North American Midway is when there's 5 Saturdays in July. That's unfortunate because we did enjoy them. But we do have another new amusement company coming this year that we think is going to be pretty good. So the next one. This is our fun family weekend, too, which you should see Moana. We love 8 and under children, and we do everything we can to try to entertain them at the Kids Ice Cream Social. Batman's over there in the corner. And then, of course, our wonderful McHenry Warriors in the parade. Great band. Okay, Men of Monday night. Actually, this is called the football raffle, and we see Sandy there. It's great, too. But it is a wonderful event that is done at about 2 different local restaurants, and it's a strong football themed raffle. Let's move on to Downtown Uncorked. Downtown Uncorked has sold out 2 years in a row. We do keep the attendance rather low. We don't go over 300, with it. But the whole idea of conceiving Downtown Uncorked was to draw people into our stores. And we had 15 different stores in downtown McHenry that opened up their doors for about 3 hours. And celebrated these, 300 ladies and gentlemen on their premises. And they were buying. These 15 stores really did enjoy it. And we're looking forward to our 3rd year with Downtown Uncorked. Radical River Road Rally. Oh, this is Downtown Uncorked too. You can kind of see Pamela Martell, there at Cottage Boutique. Okay, Radical River Road Rally. Radical River Road Rally is a fun event bringing the community into 11 establishments where attendees perform a task before moving on to the next location. Along with Downtown Uncorked, this event pulls attendees into organizations that they may have never been aware of before. And you can kind of see these people dress up too as well when they're part of this. This group, the last group I'm really worried about, too, but they had a great time. And then, of course, we had Keys Martial Arts was one of the places that we visited. Usually you have to do kind of a fun task before you can get your clue to the next place. By the way, it's mileage-based. It is not speed-based. It's mileage-based. Okay, our our chapter's luncheon. I don't know whether you could see Donna Schaefer and Wayne Seeley up there, but this is where we honor those who have had lifetime achievements that have improved our communities, too. And event is produced by many local organizations such as First Light, which is Sandy Sherman's organization. It's produced by these people that actually serve the senior community and helps them get some visibility for their company as well. Let's move on to the Veterans Expo. I know you've heard about this. This occurred in November, and it was very successful. It was completed by our veteran organizations in our community, led by Kurt Ames of Chain of Lakes Brewing. And we had about 300 veterans, not at one time, but we had about 300 veterans that flowed through off and on and visited these different organizations as well as chamber businesses that offer perks for these veterans. Okay, I'm almost done. Okay, let's go into some other services. And I would be remiss if I did not mention some other services that Chamber provides to our business community, such as Welcome to Your New Home. And I don't know whether Scott recognizes that young lady, but too, that is a Welcome Wagon program that we produce. Monthly and weekly newsletters. We also have midweek coupons, and they're all designed to connect our residents with our area businesses. Okay, we're going to talk about how Chamber does give back to our community. First of all, you kind of get an idea of my board involvement. I will tell you, the McHenry Riverwalk Foundation has my heart. There's no question. I've been on it for multiple years, and I'd like to see that going, too. And I know that's going to be built, people. I know it's going to be built. And I think we all in this room want that to happen too as well. Let's move on. These are other ones. Thanksgiving Harvest. Thanksgiving Harvest is something that was developed back in 2016 by Lisa Cowger, who used to be chairman of our board. She loves McHenry, despite the fact that she lives, may I mention, Crystal Lake. But she just loves McHenry. She is joined by Marty Kampmeyer in 2017, who is a local resident. In 16, they raised 6,000 pounds of food. In 17, it was 8,000. I want to have you kind of get a picture. There were about 200 people and about 15 organizations that helped us out in bringing food to the needy, during Thanksgiving and Christmas. And these are our people in our community, and the people they delivered to were in our community as well. Okay, our other referral groups give back to Shop at the Cop, TLS, Fish, Garden Quarter, and our senior resources. Shop with the Cop, and Wayne's been very good to that particular program, and we do appreciate that. Shop with the Cop is a program that is worked with by Referral Group 3, and they have supplied for over 5 years the total support of our community Shop with the Cop program, raising over $100,000 for disadvantaged children in our community. The Swan Award. I think we see Wayne over there in the corner right next to John Smith. The Chamber revisited a program we initiated in 2007 called the Swan Award. Based on the story of the ugly duckling that turns into a swan, the brass award is meant to be attached to the outside of a business to honor those that put a significant amount of care in improving the facade of an organization. The Chamber feels that this will highlight companies that improve the McHenry's downtown area, and our hope is to have multiple different Swan Awards on our downtown buildings in the future. Demographics. But you might be a little curious about this. Okay, I'm going to try to see this. Members categorized by the customer group, in other words, who they serve. Business to consumer, you can see about 54% there. Business to business, about 19%. And dual, that would be your banks that serve both, and they run about 27%, I think that's what that says. Then we go on, members categorized by location. Every once in a while I hear that our members come from all outside the area, and that just ain't so. It's our McHenry area is 72%, and then outside of the area, but in McHenry County, we have about 21. And then beyond McHenry County is about 7%. And that would be your advocate healthcare system is one example of that. You also see business professionals that are working in downtown Chicago, maybe for a law office, that want to have a presence in McHenry County where they live. And so they will join the Chamber of Commerce just to provide that. Okay, now we're going into business type. You see services. Services are 58%. Not-for-profits are 10%. Our manufacturer wholesalers are 6%. Home-based 13%, and retail 13%. To at this present time, you can see services have made an adjustment along with the economy as people change their buying habits. Too. So I am done. I want to thank you for listening so closely to me, being kind in your attendance, and I introduce back to you Denny Norton.
Thanks, Pete. Another 20 minutes or so, we'll have you out of here. The McHenry Area Chamber of Commerce mission statement reads this as this. The McHenry Area Chamber of Commerce is dedicated to providing support to the growth and development of the business community and to continually improve the quality of life for those who live and work in the McHenry area. The McHenry Chamber Board, staff, and members have worked hard to abide by our mission statement and provide an exceptional Chamber of Commerce for all our McHenry area businesses. For myself, the Board of Directors, and staff, we'd like to thank you for the opportunity to present our 2017 review, and would also like to thank the city and its staff for all the support you give us year in and year out, and look forward to working with you guys next year. Thank you.
That's it.
I just want to personally thank you for all you do in the community, and I look forward to our meeting tomorrow regarding the state of the city for 2018. So once again, thank you. Appreciate it. The next item on the agenda is public comment portion for items that are on the consent agenda or items not on the individual action items. Is there anyone in the public that would like to make a public comment at this time? Phil?
I just got a few questions this time.
Sure.
But one question is, the alleyway that used to go between the sports center and the theater, was that vacated?
It's private.
It's private. That was the city, there was access to the parking behind it. Now with the theater moved over, you have no access to the back. Kids go through there and everything else. I was just, it's been an open alleyway since I was a kid. Now it's closed down. I was just wondering why. I guess we're gonna have a meeting on the building I'm still complaining about, which is 1014 North River Road. Nothing's really changed in a month. I did, on Facebook, tell the mayor a month before that I had concerns that he was gonna look into it. So that's been over 2 months. The zoning that Danny agreed to, which is file Z456, we'll get into later, I guess when we have our meeting with the city. But I still have concerns with them. I was there today. I wish I would have had a camera, but I didn't. Their trucks are parked past their entrance to their buildings. Semis lined up along River Road facing the wrong way. They were blocking north side, which is now the main road thoroughfare from 120 to River Road. People fly through there all the time. And they're right up against the corner. nobody can see around them, waiting for an accident to happen. They got school buses and everything else. That needs to be addressed. I did have 2 other neighbors that were supposed to come, but I guess they forgot about it. But they're trying backing out, and they got the trucks blocking their driveways and everything. So, they just need to get that one piece taken care of as fast as possible. They've been there for too long. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. Anyone else from the public that would like to make a public comment? Cheryl Ann, step to the podium, please.
I'm Cheryl Ann Wolfenham. I'm with the Polish Legion of American Veterans. Deanna Mintz, she is our commander at the Polish Legion. We have a little issue with parking on Park Street now. The signs say 2 hours. Of course, I was the first one to get a ticket on Park Street. I've been parking there for 8 years and never gotten a ticket. Any of the other streets say 4-hour parking between 8 and 6, except for Sunday. Court Street, Green Street, Pearl Street, Riverside Drive, but Park Street is only 2-hour parking with 2 signs that are at almost to the corner of Park and Pearl. And we'd like to get that adjusted or whatever can be done to, we have people that are there volunteering daily that spend more than 2 hours in the building working. There's businesses on that street. If you go to get your hair done, it takes longer than 2 hours to get your hair done. There's the Able Lock and Key. What else is there? Midwest Homes. There's a massage parlor there. It's just something that needs to be thought about. 2 hours is just not enough time. I could go out and move my car every 2 hours if need be, but if I'm involved in volunteering on something, I don't always have time to get up and go run out, move my car, and then go on.
Oh, I was just gonna add to that, and if you are someone that's coming from, for 120 onto Park, yeah, there's no way you're gonna see the sign that is all the way at the end of the street. A lot of us didn't even know it was 2-hour parking, and like Cheryl said, we've been parking there for years and years, so it is just an issue, and we just wanna make sure that gets addressed, especially with this garage opening. You know, there's lots of different events that happen around there, so parking is already quite an issue and can be challenging.
And we have a lot of events, you know, a lot of events that we raise money for our hospital vets and their families. And events can run 6-8 hours throughout the day. So this is something that we want thought about for us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're talking a lot about parking, so we'll definitely discuss that, and I agree. We should probably look into 4 hours on that street, so, but we'll discuss that, okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public that would like to make a public comment at this time? I see none. We'd be moving on to the consent agenda. Is any council members wanting to pull any items or separate discussion or consideration? Alderman Glab?
Yeah, I'll pull C.
C as in cat?
C as in cat.
Alderman Condon?
Over it too.
I'd like to pull item A.
Any other council would like to pull another item? See none? At this time, I'm looking for a motion to approve the following consent agenda items, 8B, D, and E. Alderman Santee?
I'll make that motion.
Second? Alderman Curry?
Second.
Any discussion on these items? Alderman Curry?
Just a quick question on the dial-a-ride service. And I'm sure it probably hasn't changed, but I noticed that when we look at the costs associated with it, municipalities are, many of them are charged $1.20 per capita, yet the townships seem to be like 20 cents per capita, 25 cents. You're just looking for an explanation of why there's such a huge difference in the per capita rate.
The dial-a-ride rates are actually, they utilize the formula from the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning. That's how they get the per capita rate. The township rate is, you know, I don't know the exact formula that goes into it, but it comes from the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning, so it's consistent amongst all municipalities. And, you know, so the township's more of a flat. I'm not even sure if they use the CMAP rate for townships, but I know that they do use it for municipalities.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems, on its surface, it just seems a little interesting that, you know, for example, McHenry, our charge is, we have call it 27,000 residents, and our charge is 32,000 plus. And McHenry Township, which is in category of 30 to 60,000 residents, and the charge is 7,000. I mean, it just doesn't seem to track very well with, on a per capita rate now.
Yeah, I know, it's, I don't know exactly what goes into the formula that they use, but they use a standardized rate that the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning came up with. They started using that a couple years ago to basically, to make the cost consistent amongst the municipalities and the township. That's how they come up with the formula.
Alderman Glad?
Yeah, I was just going to comment, you know, the population that they show for the township is just so great, but then you have to take out the municipalities, which they're counting in, and does that reduce it quite a bit? In other words, maybe that's why it's only 7,000 for them, due to the fact that once you take the municipalities out, their township numbers are reduced so drastically. It's got to be.
I mean, it might be, that's my question.
Maybe something we research for next year.
Yeah, I mean, I could get you better information. I don't know the exact answer to your question. I'm not sure. Because there's not every township is included in the county and not every municipality. So there's some municipalities of which a township that may be in there is not included. So I'm not sure.
Thank you, Doug. Any other discussion on these items by council? See none. Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Santee?
Yes.
Alderman Curry?
Yes.
Alderman Schaefer?
Yes.
Alderwoman Condon?
Yes.
Alderman Glad?
Yes.
Alderman Devine?
Yes.
Alderman Mahavik?
Yes. Thank you, council. 8A was pulled by Alderwoman Condon. Resolution establishing the 2018 City Council meeting schedule. I'm looking for a motion on this item. Alderman Curry?
I'll move to adopt the schedule.
Thank you. Alderman Santee?
I'll second.
Discussion on this item?
I have none.
Alderwoman Condon?
I have actually several things I'd like to point out about the schedule as presented for this year. As you can note, both June and, well, let me back up. April is always a little bit of an anomaly because we always add the annual meeting in there, and having the committee of the whole is practical because of the budget. So that's a separate issue. But then when you look at both June and August, we have 3 scheduled meetings versus July and September when we only have 1 scheduled meeting for each of those months. In the past, years ago, we used to have, in practice, 3 meetings a month. I believe it was the 1st, the 3rd, and the 4th of Monday of each month. And then we reduced it to only 2 meetings a month, which was appropriate. I realize the schedule, because of holidays that often fall on Mondays, are the reason this switched around. And in the past, sometimes we've gone to have Like for July 4th, we've gone to a Tuesday or a Wednesday meeting. But I think in general, the public, even if it doesn't follow the first or third Monday, people look for our meetings on Monday. So I think that's practical to keep them on Mondays. But I just think for scheduling purposes, if you looked at July, instead of doing the 16th, doing the 9th and the 23rd, to spread them out more evenly across the year, and again on September 17th, instead of that, having it the 10th or the 24th. Even though those aren't the first and the third, I think they still make more sense than you're adding in different weeks of the month anyway. So I just think it makes more sense to have 2 meetings a month and not go as long without meetings. The third month that I would like to request that we do something different about is November 19th, which is the week of Thanksgiving. I will admit that for the last 2 years, I have not been present for that meeting because I've been out of town on with family. And I think a lot of people are out of town or unavailable during that week. Not necessarily just the council people and the staff, but community members that might want to attend. So for that reason, I would request that we change the 19th to either the 12th or the 26th. Now, I know there's been already been a motion for that, but I would really encourage the each of the other aldermen to consider maybe having staff review this and either the suggested dates that I put forth for July as the 9th and the 23rd, and September as the 10th and the 24th instead of the listed dates, and come back with us. We have one more scheduled meeting in December so we can easily have this looked at and brought back. So.
Alderman Glenn?
Yeah, I just think considering there isn't any necessity to have it approved this early at the end of the year, right? I mean, we've got another meeting.
That just has to be by the end of the year.
Should be a reason, you know, to address everybody's concerns, possibly send out an email to council and with the concerns that Alderwoman Condon has and where we want to go with it, and you know, get the comments from the council and then send it back out.
Does the majority agree?
Do we need somebody to withdraw the motion, or?
Right, if everybody wants to go in that direction, then take it back to the staff and we'll just withdraw the motion in the second. So is that what everybody wants to do?
Alderman Sandy?
No, I had a question also. I wasn't concerned, I didn't have many concerns at all Condon had, but I was just looking at July and September, and if July is the third, it's the third Monday of the month. Same thing with September, correct? We normally go one and first
right.
Monday, second and third. And reasoning behind just the one meeting in those 2 months?
What we're trying to do is move that's why we added another date in June and one in August, is to try to make sure that we, I guess, replaced at least the meetings for July and September by having, but it doesn't matter whether it's really June 25th or whether it's switching them and having the 2 meetings in July. We were just trying to stick to the first and third Mondays, so the third Mondays would be left in July and the third Monday in September would still be left. But of course, if council wants, for those couple of months in November, if it wants to, we can change those to the second and fourth Mondays of those months. We didn't even think about that, to be honest with you, switching from the first and third Mondays to something else.
Okay, and the only other question I had was we do have committee of the whole meetings in January, April. Okay, which those are meetings that may or may not happen, correct?
Yeah, so those dates are being, I guess for lack of a better term, being reserved, added. January 29th to be able to have a discussion as the whole council of the capital improvement program. Typically we try to have that discussion as part of a regular council meeting, but it can get lost or pushed for time or whatever with other items, so that was what that one was reserved for. And the ones in April, specifically to be able to have a budget discussion, similar to what we had at the committee level last year, but allow that opportunity for the entire council and obviously public to be a part of that, to be able to hear that discussion, interaction also. The first one in April, which is that second Monday, would really be the workshop. We reserved the fourth Monday if we needed to meet again for it. At least we have a date, a date established if something comes up or there's substantial changes made, that we had another date that was already identified to be able to discuss the budget and follow up. Typically because then you adopt the budget the last
Exactly, yeah.
Monday of the month.
No, I follow. No, I have no other concern.
Alderman Kern?
I guess if it sounds like staff is looking at, and the mayor is looking at it, and agreeable to look at it again, I certainly have no issue. I don't have any issue either way, I guess, but so given that, I will withdraw my motion.
A second.
Was it my second?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, yes,
Okay,
so,
I'll withdraw that. I mean, I'm comfortable, but, if there's some things that need to be worked out or possibly, done differently, I'm willing to look at it 2 weeks from now.
We'll put together a revised schedule based on the comments and get it to council for input, and then we'll have it on for December 18th.
Well, while we're at it, Derek had asked me before the meeting or sometime earlier about whether we were required to have an annual meeting, so we may work that out of the schedule as well. That seemed to be a meeting that very little is done, well, other than my appointment. You don't want to lose track of it. I know.
Okay, so thank you, council. Moving on to 8C, Alderman Glab has pulled this. We're looking for a motion for the ordinance amending Municipal Code, Chapter 11, Article 3, Section 11-89, relating to the outside refuse containers. Looking for a motion. Alderman Glab?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we deny this request and send it back to community development with the discussions that we have tonight.
Second to that? All right. Once again, I'm looking for a motion for 8C, ordinance amending Municipal Code Chapter 11, Article 3, Section 11-89, relating to the outside storage of single-family refuse containers. Alderwoman Condon?
I will make that motion as just presented.
Thank you. Second? Alderman Santi?
I will second the motion.
Thank you. Discussion on this item? Alderman Glab.
Yeah, considering I'm the only one that seems to care right now about this motion, is the fact that for years we've had this ordinance in place as far as garbage and refuse containers. And granted, maybe we need better wording as far as public's plain view, but between the street and the principal structure is not exactly a fix in my eyes. I mean, by no means. What's the difference if somebody puts their dumpster to the left of their garage door or moves it around 3 feet? You still see it. It's still out in plain sight. All you're doing is moving it off of a paved surface, and now you're putting it on a grass surface. Now, are we going to do that for all the storage cars that we have on driveways and everything else, and say we don't want to see them out in front anymore, we don't want to see those, and let's just let them park it on the grass? You know, the thing is over the years, with the economy the way it was, we reduced our amount of help that we had in community development as far as code enforcement. Our code enforcement was not as up to par as it should have been. Over the years, things have slid and they've slid and they've slid in residential areas. And this is one of the biggest complaints that I get from residents when they talk about code enforcement, as far as these garbage cans sitting out in front. So they don't want to see them. They don't want to smell their neighbor's garbage. They don't want to have to look at those garbage cans. And to say that, well, gee, they're darker brown now and they're not quite as noticeable. They're still noticeable. They're still there. Now, I wouldn't have a problem if people didn't want to take them and put them in the back or put them in their garage, and they wanted to put them on the side of their garage, and they wanted to put a concrete pad and a little nice fence around it to where it's not visible, that'd be fine. But why are we taking a step backwards? I mean, this would take us back 20 plus years as far as these garbage totes, because that's how long this ordinance has been around. And like I said, I mean, I had one woman that I said, no, don't bother coming tonight, because she was that upset about it, because she's called community development many a times on the fact that on her block that she sees these totes all the time. Now, you're not talking just one, you're talking two. Or possibly you could have three. I mean, and it doesn't specifically state that it has to be, you know, could be a garbage and refuse container. Does that mean I can buy 14 garbage cans and I can line them up as long right across the front, or right behind the building line across because it's garbage cans and refuse containers? Now, granted, it's a little absurd, it's a little pushing it over the edge, but I mean, it could happen. I think we need to address this as far as the fact that we get an ordinance that works, and the fact that we take and at the minimum stay at the standard we were and not start heading backwards. And that's my view on this.
Thank you. Alderwoman Condon?
Thank you. I take offense that just because you have an objection to it, that you're the only one that cares about it. It was addressed at length at committee, and just because we have a different viewpoint doesn't mean that we don't consider it important. So the working of that is a little disconcerting to me. But the reason why we changed the ordinance to the way it was, and to be honest with you, I had one of the exact concerns that you had about allowing garbage to be on the grass on the side of a home when we would require a car or anything else on wheels to be on a slab. But a car, if it's inoperable and it's just sitting there, that's one thing that you're not going to be able to cut the grass underneath it. A garbage tote, you can move it to cut the grass. So, and if the grass does grow tall, we have ordinance to cover that. So that really is a non-issue. And I too have gotten calls and objections about garbage cans being, and I have it on my own street too, on front porch or on the driveway in front of the garage. And when you say out of plain sight, the concern, as our ordinance says right now, the concern with that is in whose view? I mean, if the neighbor's in their yard, they can see it, so, you know, but maybe somebody can't see it from the road. The plain view is not, it is very challenging to be able to enforce. This was something that would be easily enforceable by just driving by. Is it still a concern that it's visible? Yes. To some people it would be, but this is something moving in the right direction because it is able to be more enforceable, and we were trying to be proactive. So I think we're in the right direction. Will we have to tweak it later on? Possibly, but we're in the right direction.
Thank you. Alderman Webb?
How can we say we're going in the right direction when this actually allows those dumpsters to be where they're not allowed right now? And I don't mean because the fact they're out there right now that they're legal, but you change the ordinance and now it's become legal because of the fact that it's there. I mean, it is going back, you know, I mean, are we gonna wind up going back to the horse and buggy days someday? I mean, come on. You know, we're supposed to be heading forward and not backwards. And to me, this ordinance, by changing those words, we are going in reverse. You know, Mayor Jet, you took and you got elected, and I read a lot of your Facebook, and boy, what we're gonna do to this community as far as uplift it, everything else, I mean, we've discussed, you sat down with every one of these aldermen, and almost every one of these aldermen had a problem with, what, code enforcement, correct? Property maintenance. This is part of property maintenance, and this is the easiest maintenance. Just move the containers. You're gonna set that container on the side of your garage, behind the building code, or the building line, okay? 6 days out of the week. What happens to the grass underneath? Yeah, you don't have to worry about cutting it because it's gonna be dead. It's gonna look like heck. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense to change those words. If we need to change it to make it more enforceable because of the plain view, that's fine. But it's, you know, by saying it, as long as it's behind the principal structure, it's still in plain view. And what was the intent of the ordinance? By plain view, it's pretty easy to say that it's not so much that your neighbor can see it in your backyard, it's when people drive by through the community that they don't see garbage cans all over the place. I mean, come on, let's uplift our community, for God's sakes, let's not downgrade it. And again, we've had this discussion about code enforcement. There's a lot of code enforcement that has lapsed over the years. Not complaining with staff because they have been understaffed for many years. And now we're starting to address those concerns a little bit better. And I don't mean we get a hammer out right away and just start beating everybody up, but we have to start heading back towards where we were 15, 16 years ago before the downturn when we had our code enforcement out there. People get into habits and they get into bad habits. I get into bad habits. You get into bad habits. Everybody does. I mean, it's human nature. And we just need to slowly turn the community around to be aware of some of the things that cause what they complain about the most. You know, speeding in neighborhoods. I've seen, been at several meetings over the years to where they complain about speeding in the neighborhoods. And yet, some of those people that were at the meeting that were complaining were the ones that got tickets within a week or two for speeding in their own neighborhood. I mean, because again, that's why we put the digital signs out there, just to make people aware that, hey, you are speeding. You know, you may not realize it. Well, it's the same way with this. You know, people have gotten in the habit of the fact that they don't. And it just got into it. Nerve-wracking, because if I go through the community, I see them all the time out there. And we need a code enforcer for probably 4 to 6 months just to keep enforcing it to get it to where it's supposed to be. But do we back off of it because of the fact that we don't have enough code enforcement? Do we change the ordinance because of it? So if somebody calls and complains, we can now say that, well, that's not what our ordinance says anymore. Yes, they can do it. That's where I'm at.
Any other discussion on this item, Alderman Santi?
Yeah, it's not the end all be all, it's not perfect, but I just do like the type. I see it as, I had some concerns going through this, but I do like the tightening of the different verbiage that we placed here. Once again, it's not the end all be all. If we review this at some point in the future, we do that, but we did have some conversations going back and forth on this prior to changing the verbiage in the committee meeting.
Alderman Curry?
Just a question, I don't know if staff knows the answer, but the complaints that you have addressed when you go out and look, are they mainly, shall I say, the containers alongside the garage, or are they containers right out in front? And because it talks about, you know, containers being on porches and things like that. Do you have a feel for how?
Yeah, normally they're either left in the driveway, closer to the street, where they don't drag them up all the way, or they're on a porch, or they're in a front yard. You know, this month alone, we've 73 complaints, and I can't tell you how many actually were behind the front of the building. but I would guarantee that it's not many. We're still gonna have these complaints coming in, we're still gonna address these complaints. The idea of it is actually, you know, as Alderwoman Cotton stated earlier, is, you know, we have some finicky people that drive around the city and look for, because it says plain view, I can see it, and we go out and we look, and it's tucked in the back of the garage, the back side of the house somewhere, and it's not really, you know, the intent of the ordinance is to keep them put away. You know, and they meet the intent, but yet the ordinance says plain view, and if you can see it from the street, even though it's tucked on the side of their house, we have to send violation notice to them. So the idea is to kind of eliminate some of that time we're spending on garbage containers so that we can focus a little bit more on some of the other things code enforcement related in town. 73 complaints. If I can eliminate 50 of those because they're tucked away alongside the house and they're somewhat aesthetically pleasing, I mean, they're garbage cans, right? They're everyday part of our lives. Throw garbage in. Some communities, some neighborhoods, like Legend Lakes and a few others have associations that don't allow them at all to be seen, and therefore they're in the garages, so we have coverage there. This is just, you know, I mean, you can't expect people to put them in the garage because they stink, but yet, you know, you want them alongside the house. That's why we're keeping, you know, we don't want them in front of the house. We'll still go out and complain. Many.
You're indicating the vast majority of the complaints you deal with are already alongside the garage, is that correct?
No, they're in front of the
I'm
house.
sorry, I said that wrong, excuse me.
Correct.
They're the ones that are actually out,
Yes.
you know, plainly out in front.
I would encourage you to, you know, and I know it's probably something you haven't done, when you're driving down the road through town now, just kind of look. You know, if I had one person out on garbage can complaint, it would be a full-time job for a code enforcement officer. It's where everybody keeps them, is on the side of their house. And you probably don't notice it right now.
Thank you.
Alderman Schaefer?
I think that's what this accomplishes. It's the major complaints and the major issues of those containers that are out in the street or out in the middle of the front of the driveway, and moves them to an area where that resident then and that homeowner has can be accommodated, and it's the least burden on them as well, so that it takes care of the whole thing in the neighborhood. I think this is fine the way this is done.
Thank you. Alderman Glab.
Changing this language does not change the complaints. All it changes is his response to people to say, well, the city council took and changed the ordinance and now it is allowable in certain areas. But what we're doing is we are allowing them to get away with what isn't supposed to have been in the first place, and it will cause other problems. I mean, having them out there, how many times do you have raccoons knocking them over, actually lifting the lids and getting into those dumpsters at times? If you have a bad problem of those type of animals at night, they will be getting into these containers. And we really don't need that type of problems creeping up into the city. Because we're not just talking raccoons, we could be talking mice and rats and everything else. I mean, again, well, why would we be less restrictive with this change in the ordinance and then come back later and we're going to make it and take it back to being more restrictive again? We've got an ordinance that would work if it was enforceable, and you know, maybe we get it out in the city newsletter. You know, maybe it'll take a couple times in the city newsletter, maybe it'll take a couple times reminding by community development, but at least it gets done. But to take and head backwards on an ordinance is just not the right way to do it as far as I'm concerned. I mean, are we a city that's moving forward, or are we moving back? And you know, you can talk associations. Yes, I can think of several different associations that wouldn't allow the dumpsters out in the front. But That isn't the whole city. And I think we need to look at how it affects the entire city. And I mean, we've talked about weed controls, we've talked about a lot of other things to uplift the looks of this city. And I don't want to see where we take an ordinance that makes it permissible to lower the looks of our town.
Thank you. Alderwoman Condon?
Just for clarification, I was one of the people that said that we could look at the ordinance again if needed, but I said that with anytime we change a new, or anytime we create a new ordinance or change an ordinance, because we don't know how it's gonna play out. That's not just for this, it's for anything that we try. You know, you try it, if there's a problem, you bring it back, you make adjustments. So that wasn't specific to this. That's my philosophy in anything and everything that we do.
Thank you. Alderman Schaefer?
Just for clarity, this makes it mandatory, or if the ordinance states you can no longer put it between your residence and the street. So you can't have it in front.
That's correct.
So it eliminates that, what you just talked about.
Could you explain yourself, Alderman Schaefer? Because you're not quite being clear.
You just mentioned that we're going back because we're allowing it to be placed in front of your house or in front of
No,
your...
we're allowing it to be front out into view.
No, this isn't.
According to the ordinance that's in place right now, you can't have it in view. Which means if you put it on the side of your house and it isn't behind your fence, you see it off the street, then you're not in compliance with the ordinance.
Correct.
What you're changing is now, instead of having this in front of the garage on the side, now you can move it 2 feet over to the side, and now it's legal.
Correct.
Here we have a person complaining with it. You may not have a problem with it, but it seems like 73 people in a month have a problem.
But no.
Okay, we're here to represent the people there, Alderman Schaefer. And I resented the fact that somebody would say that it was my opinion. It's not my opinion, it's opinions that I get from constituents. And that's why I'm fighting for leaving that ordinance either the way it is or just making it enforceable.
Thank you.
But the fact is, what Ross stated was that those 73 people were not violations of what you just stated. So the facts that you stated were not.
Not all of them, no. But some of them, yes.
Very few.
How do you know?
I listened to what he just said.
Did you give us a percentage? No, you didn't. Thank you. Let's not assume things here.
Is there any other discussion on this item by council? Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Condon?
Yes.
Alderman Santee?
Yes.
Alderman Devine?
Yes.
Alderman Mahavik?
Yes.
Alderman Glab?
No.
Alderman Schaefer?
Yes.
Alderman Curry?
Yes. Thank you, council. Moving on to the action items this evening. Tonight we have 8 specific agenda items to be discussed and acted upon. The last 2 items are requests I am personally making of the city. These 2 items relate to me purchasing a building in the city of McHenry to conduct my business operations. To avoid any appearance of wrongdoing, we'll have Attorney McCardle here discuss that process when we get to those items. So the first action item, to adopt an ordinance granting a conditional use permit to allow outdoor storage of boats and recreational vehicles in conjunction with the contractor's office for the property located at 4564 Bull Valley Road. Doug, can you please present this item?
Thank you, Mayor Jett. The applicant is requesting conditional use permit to allow the outdoor storage of boats and recreational vehicles at 4564 Bull Valley Road in conjunction with the contractor's office.
Thank you, Doug. Any discussion from council on this item?
In fact, it's a shame that there hasn't been development around it, which might have changed our decision tonight, but I really don't have a problem with what's being submitted, but what does bother me is the fact that the property got into the shape that it did, and it's hidden back there so far, it doesn't affect anything back there. So allowing somebody else and giving them the chance to do it shouldn't affect anything, but I would sure hope that we would kind of remember what happened last time and just make sure that every now and then kind of keep our eyes on some of these that are hidden way back there.
Absolutely. Alderman Schaefer?
The only other consideration that I thought would be good is, with this is sometimes when you allow this, that makes it, they seem appropriate that they can then sell vehicles from out in front and put vehicles for sale out in front of some of these storage areas, and I just want to make sure that that's not the case here, based on other ordinances that we have, correct?
Correct. They cannot sell, he knows he cannot sell vehicles, plus there's very minimal space to sell a vehicle along the roadway. That's why I put the condition about locating the sign very carefully along the road and working with staff. But it's not for selling vehicles, just for storage of boats and recreational vehicles.
Thank you.
Alderman Santi?
The road itself going back, leading back there, Doug, is that a gravel or is that? It's all
Yeah, it's just a drive, it's private access drive, kind of, just like a flag lot.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion on this item? Alderman Curry?
Quick question, I think I read in here, there is no fencing back there where these are going to be stored, is that correct?
No, there is none right now. There is a requirement, and the applicant's here actually in the audience, but there is a requirement, and I believe he does have security lighting, and that is a requirement to have minimal security lighting and cameras, because it is remote, and because it is, you can't see it from the road.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion on this item? At this point, I'm going to open it up to public input on this item for 9A. Is there anyone in the public that would like to make a public comment regarding this item? See none, to council, I'm looking for a motion to adopt an ordinance granting a conditional use permit to allow outdoor storage of boats and recreational vehicles in conjunction with a contractor's office for the property located at 4564 Bull Valley Road. Alderman Condon?
I make a motion as just presented by the mayor.
Thank you. Second? Alderman Devine? Any other discussion on this item? Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Condon?
Yes.
Alderman Devine?
Yes.
Alderman Santi?
Yes.
Alderman Curry?
Yes.
Alderman Mahavik?
Yes.
Alderman Schaefer?
Yes.
Alderman Glad?
Yes.
Thank you, council. The next item on the agenda is discussion to grant sign variance to Boone Creek Crossing LLC for a projecting sign not to exceed 16 square feet for 1204 North Green Street, and allow 2 additional wall signs off-site, advertising on 3 proposed digital signs and 125.25 square feet of additional wall signage for 1208 North Green Street. Ross, can you please present this item?
Thank you, Mayor. Community Development Department received a sign variance request for the DC Cobb's Restaurant and the McHenry Movie Theater located at 1204 and 1208 Green Street. Staff has reviewed the request and feels the sign package proposal falls within the McHenry Municipal Code sign variance guidelines.
The applicant is here this evening from Boone Creek Crossing. If you have any questions for him as well, I'm going to open up the discussion from council. No discussion. I'm going to move this to public input. You have Alderman Glad. Oh, sorry, I didn't see you. Alderman Glad?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, when I first saw this proposal, I had some concerns, however, discussions with a little bit of what wasn't laid out here as far as some of the signage and how it relates to the business makes a little bit more sense, and wouldn't want to see it all over town, but I can see where it works.
Thank you. Alderman Curry.
Yeah, I do have a question. I guess you call them digital posters that are in front, and on the top of those, there's like a small banner that has this is the request for the variance for the off-site advertising. Is the theater, there's 3 theaters there, and there's 3 indication of these digital posters, right? And each of them has a separate sponsor, I guess, if you will. In the packet, Gary Lang, Bus Ford, and Stefan.
Correct.
Now, my understanding is, and I don't know if this is correct or not, is the theaters themselves, it's kind of like the Gary Lang Theater, and so in effect, this is just the name of the theater.
It is, yes.
Versus a standard, what we would consider off-site advertising.
Right.
So.
It could go both ways. We chose to put it in there just to clarify it. So yeah, I mean, you could say it's the name of the theater, and it's not really advertising for that business, but that business is a local business, and
correct.
We want to make sure we have it on record.
I'll choose to think of it as the name of the theater.
Any other discussion on this item? Alderman Santi?
And the way those, I mean, you gave some good descriptions and there's some drawings here. I was just trying to visualize though, they're actually going to sit those signs. It describes it as under the awnings or the facade that comes out from the building. So the signage will actually be underneath the facade or the, how, and I apologize if it's in there, but how far out do those awnings?
Hey, Doctor, if you don't mind coming to the podium.
Okay, sure.
I know you're tired after a long day.
Can use a stretch. Okay, so it'd be the far north, I'll call it a wing wall. It's about 10 feet, and those 3 boxes are about 3 feet, so 9 feet. So, and yes, it's all, the awning goes on an angle, so it's tucked underneath there. So it'll pretty much just take up the wall that's there.
Okay, okay. And I guess the only other question I had, I don't know if the staff or do the actual signs come back to us once this is done tonight? Do we see anything, or just staff review this? What happens next?
They go through a permitting process, yes.
Okay.
We check for electric, UL, labeling on the signs, things of that nature. But this is the package. If you approve it tonight, they'll probably be hanging tomorrow.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Alderman Schaefer?
Those signs that are on the wing wall, as you say, those are all gonna be on the wall facing south, I would assume, right?
Correct.
And they're gonna be similar to what all theaters have with those window boxes?
Yes, the old one over the other side had a little box, I'll call it, the posters.
Right, for the movie, and this is gonna have that top section, 10-inch top section that's gonna show.
Correct.
Those 3 sponsors.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Alderwoman Condon?
Initially I kept going back and trying to reread because I couldn't understand the off-site signage, but then when I realized it was because of the businesses. But you know what, I agree with Alderman Curry. I mean, I see it as really that's the name of that theater. I wouldn't want to start a precedence throughout the community, but this is really unique. And again, it's so wonderful, I think, that it's businesses helping businesses, and our community coming together to have this theater come back. So I think it's a great effort from the whole community.
Thank you. Alderman Santi?
And I know I'm placing this back to Mr. Tanya there, but I from the group and the LLC, it's my opinion, and I don't see myself bending from this, but you guys will do a very very clean, very astute, very good-looking presentation of that building, because it's yours and you're part of the community, and appreciate everything that's being done.
Thanks.
Alderman Schaefer?
One more sign question. The one that's gonna be the hanging sign?
Yes.
That's gonna be still under an awning, or will that be out
No,
over the sidewalk?
that will be, it's a Z, I'll call it. So that'll be sticking out 4 feet on a bracket on the private walkway portion.
Oh, okay. Along which side of the building? would that
Okay, the posters are going on the north, and then it comes back out, goes in, comes back out. It'll be on that point, and it goes back into the entryway.
Okay. And that's gonna be, obviously, that one is the one by DC Cobbs. Now, the theaters aren't gonna have those.
No, it'll be the next unit to the south.
Right. Thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions or discussion for Don? Thank you, Don.
Thanks.
At this time, I open up to public input. Is there anyone in the public that would like to make a public comment on this item? I see none. At this time, I'm looking for a motion to grant sign variances to Boone Creek Crossing LLC for a projecting sign not to exceed 16 square feet for 1204 North Green Street, and allow 2 additional wall signs off-site advertising on 3 proposed digital signs, and 125.25 square feet of additional wall signage for 1208 North Green Street. Alderman Santee.
I will make that motion as presented.
Alderwoman Condon.
Second.
Discussion on this item? Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Santee?
Yes.
Alderwoman Condon?
Yes.
Alderman Curry?
Yes.
Alderman Glad?
Yes.
Alderman Devine?
Yes.
Alderman Mahavik?
Yes.
Alderman Schaefer?
Yes.
Thank you, council. Thank you, Don, appreciate it. Go hang the signs. No. Next item is discussion for adopting ordinances for the abatement of real estate taxes levied for the 2017 tax levy year for the following bond issues: general obligation bonds, series 2010B for $418,105, general obligation bonds, series 2010C for $446,920, general obligation bonds, series 2012 for $210,432.50, general obligation bonds, series 2013 for $593,910, and general obligation bonds, series 2015, $576,978.76. Carolyn, can you please present this item?
The City of McHenry has issued a variety of bonds backed by the full faith and credit of the municipality. This requires that property taxes be levied by the county clerk. The city's intentions are to abate these taxes through the county clerk annually through the attached abatement ordinances.
Thank you, Carolyn. Discussion on this item by council? Alderman Glenn.
It's just the fact that in order to bond for these loans, you basically have to pledge property taxes, but we've, over the years, the council has always never wanted to burden the homeowners on property taxes, and that's why we've always abated them. I mean, because we have other revenues to pay for. That's how we've always budgeted. And I'm glad to see that we continue on every year the same way.
Thank you. Any other discussion by council? This time I'll open up to the public for public input. Is there anyone in the public that would like to make a public input on this item? I see none. I'm looking for a motion to adopt ordinances for the abatement of real estate taxes levied for 2017 tax levy year for the following bond.
23-year track to get to 100% funded, and at that rate, assuming it continues, we'll get there long before then. So that's the good news I take away from it. Bad news is that we have to fund it at $2 million, so you know that's for this year.
Thank you. Any other discussion by council on this item? At this time, I'm going to open up to the public input. Is there anyone in the public that would like to make a public comment on this item? I see none. I'm looking for a motion to approve the annual financial report for the City of McHenry Police Pension Fund for the fiscal year ending April 30th, 2017, in accordance with the requirements set forth in the Illinois Pension Code 40 ILCS 5/3-1-143. Alderman Schaefer.
So moved.
Second. Alderman Mahavik. Second. Any discussion on this item? Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Schaefer?
Yes.
Alderman Mahavik?
Yes.
Alderman Glad?
Yes.
Alderman Santee?
Yes.
Alderwoman Condon?
Yes.
Alderman Devine?
Yes.
Alderman Curry?
Yes.
Thank you, council. Next item is discussion to authorize a budget amendment in the Recreation Center Fund in the amount of $19,500 to approve a professional services agreement with Heller & Heller Consulting LLC to perform an aquatics feasibility study for the McHenry Recreation Center in the amount of $19,500. Bill, if you could present this item, please.
Thank you, Mayor. At our last city council meeting on November 20th, we had a long discussion, well, not that long, but on our community needs assessment and the results of that. One of the things that particularly came out of that was the potential expansion of the recreation center. In order to continue down that path of determining the feasibility of how this could take shape and what that looks like, we discussed a pro forma and I guess extrapolating the results of what our revenues and expenditures might be for a couple of different options, both on a 25-meter and a 50-meter aquatic facility. But one of the things that you didn't see that I do want to reference that was not in the proposal was the discussion regarding the outdoor aquatics. And there was a good reason for that. It's back in 2014 when we did our initial feasibility study for the recreation center or the aquatic facility. That work was all done. And so that will be examined and updated as part of this. The only other component that will also have some, I guess, will be looked at slightly will be the gym. The gymnasium isn't going to have as much overhead as an aquatics facility, and that's why there doesn't need to be as much work that's put into that. There will be some examination of some revenue streams in regards to gymnasium, but in terms of actual operation of the gym, after you build it, there's not a lot of costs that are associated with that. I will add that Parks Chairman Schaefer and I had a discussion about this, and this certainly is in agreement with where the Parks Committee was at based on our discussion prior to this appearing before City Council, the community assessment appearing before City Council. So I'll be happy to answer any questions you have on this.
Thank you, Bill. Any discussion by council on this item? Alderman Curry.
Yeah, I have, I guess, comments. First of all, I guess I realize that the company that we're talking about here, Heller & Consulting, did a prior study for us. I understand that, but I think that we should, and we've said this in the past, we should typically get competitive bidding whenever possible for any contracts that we're looking at, unless that's this. I see no reason why we didn't get competitive bids, so that's one issue. The other issue that I have with it, and goes back to our discussion on the results of the survey, that we had a survey that went to, and we discussed this last time, but roughly 6,500, according to the firm, 6,500 homes, I guess, and we only got 407 back, which is a return ratio of about 6%. Most external surveys, I looked this up, typically around 10 to 15%. So we got less than half return surveys than what you would expect. And then of that, many of these questions were only answered by about half of those people. And so now we're talking about 3% of the people that the surveys were sent to actually answering the question. I don't really see that we have a strong desire that we can reach the conclusion, and we have a strong desire when we're looking at 3% and we're assuming that bothered to send it back, we would assume those are the more positive 3%, at least I would. And we're going to assume the other 97% are of the same thinking, and I just I don't see that. So it's an opinion of mine. I understand that, but that and the fact that we don't have competitive bids here.
Regarding the first portion, I will just add that no, that we're not competitive bids. We do have an existing relationship with Heller & Heller, especially based on their work on the previous pro forma, as well as their knowledge of us, of our community, of our demographics. And so, as a Parks and Rec director, I was extremely comfortable with the price that we were given. As a reference point, back in 2014 when we did just their portion of the Dewberry feasibility study, they were a sub for Dewberry. The analysis of the pro forma at that point for the outdoor aquatic facility was $24,500. So I did look into some other numbers of what where we were at back in even 2014 to what we were expecting to get on this, and I feel comfortable with that.
I understand that, but you know, it is similar to what we used to talk about with, for example, engineering quotes. You know, we always, you know, the story that, you know, thinking was that, you know, one engineering firm is familiar with us, and therefore they'll always be the lowest bidder anyway, because they're more efficient, because they know how we operate. And what we found out is that is not the case. So even though we think that because someone's familiar with us, it doesn't necessarily mean we're getting, especially when they know that they don't have any competition, that we're not necessarily getting the best price.
Thank you. Alderman Gleb?
Yeah, I kind of feel a little bit the same way as far as the fact that Heller & Heller has a lot of the information that they would have to research. And I would think that because of that they'd be giving us a better price. But because we didn't go out for proposals, we don't know. And you may feel comfortable, but you're not the one voting on it. We are. I understand, and that's why we feel a little uncomfortable about that, you know. And I can understand that maybe staff feels a lot more comfortable because you guys do work very close with them, and you feel that assured, you know, that they should probably be the person, you know, the firm to be selected based on the price. But again, I don't think anybody in this room could honestly say that they know where that price or dollar amount would be if a company had to go, you know, start out scratch, and what their best price would be. And that's why I think Alderman Curry's hit the nail on the head as far as the fact that it's always best to go out for proposals on everything, as long as there are other firms available to do the same job.
Alderman Santee?
Yeah, I'm not gonna re-ask the question, but I've had a concern for years of always getting competitive bids. But is there a time element involved here? Because I know when the gentleman did the presentation, and you know, it would get to the point of a referendum question. Is there a timetable? I mean, are we under a tight timetable, or you know, is this something, you know, that we have some open room here?
I think this. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I think that we're in a good spot time-wise right now. I don't think we have the luxury of continuing to put it off and potentially even developing it. This is a 2 to 3 month process, which puts us in that March timeframe, having those results to then be able to present that to the committee, develop then, you utilize this information to develop membership rates, to be able to answer all the questions. I think that's important, both at a committee and a council level, to say if there's any consideration of expansion at all, we need to be able to answer every single question that we can. This, in my opinion, allows us to do that.
So, okay, what you're saying, Bill, then, is if we had to go out for a request for a proposal on this, we'd be adding another, I'm just asking, another 60 to 90 days? That's what you're telling me right there? So the March would actually turn into a May or June? No? I'm trying to figure that out.
No, I think that's probably accurate. By the time we put together some RFP to identify what the services would be, now obviously you could base those services off of this proposal that we have here, but you still need to put that RFP together, come before the council to request to advertise for that RFP, advertise, come back for approval on whatever those proposals that we did receive. So depending on how long we left that open, I will say that while time is of the essence of this, time wasn't my deciding factor in trying to say, all right, this is when I think the appropriate time is to move forward on this with this particular firm. In my opinion, it was a confidence of who could do this work. I know that they're a leader in that industry. However, I can't tell you another firm that also does performance. I'm sure that there are people that do that. I know that this is a firm that's extremely knowledgeable, has presented, and is familiar with us as a city, and that those were, time is of essence. That wasn't, I'm not trying to rush or push anything through. I think we're in a good spot time-wise.
Thank you.
Alderman Glenn?
Yeah, is that because of the fact that we're so adamant to have a referendum in the spring, and so we want all that information as fast as possible?
Any potential referendum for us will be November of 18, not in the spring.
In November, so
having it ready by the
just
spring.
90 more days to get it. I mean, why would that be so much of a problem?
Our decision time to actually declare for a referendum becomes about early August. I forget, it's like August 6th, something in that time frame. And so for us to have a discussion on a committee level and then come back to have that same discussion on a council level, this is something we're actually going to do, to then be able to put an informational campaign together and really have a concerted effort to go out and get this information in the hands of the people that would be the ones that would vote on it if council so chooses. That's the important thing, is to inform as many residents as we can, to be completely, not that we wouldn't ever do this, but to be completely open and upfront. We're not running a special referendum, it's in a general election if council so chooses, but getting that information in their hands to as many residents as we can, I think is vital. And that's where time does become imperative.
Yeah, I understand it, but I also know that if you're talking August, we're still talking 9 months out. Look what can happen in 9 months, right? So, I mean, to get the information in 9 months, I mean, I don't see why we would be pushing as far as time frame like we're, and granted, we don't want to just sit on it forever and then all of a sudden be rushing at the end. But I just can't see why we wouldn't be able to have time to go out for proposals on it. That's all.
Megan. Alderwoman Condon?
Couple points. I wholeheartedly agree with the other aldermen who talked about that I think that typically we should always go out for bid. But contrary, I have a different opinion as far as this. I think this is a somewhat unique situation from my perspective because, and I'm going to back up a little bit to clarify. First of all, the reason that we had the presentation from the last meeting was because there are current users of the Recreation Center who have asked for other services. There are people in the community who have asked for, you know, a swimming pool or a gym and other activities. And so doing due diligence, the director has moved forward and we had the mailer that went out. I personally, I have my own pool, I wouldn't use it. I'm not gonna go to a gymnasium. I don't care one way or another. But I think as being on that committee, I need to be responsive to what has been put forth to the Parks Department and the Recreation Center to explore the possibilities. And I think that's what has motivated everything that's come forward. So that said, I think that if we are going to go to a referendum at some point, or even at the November 18, then we need to know what we're talking about. We need to know if it's justified and what it should look like. And so we are in somewhat of a time crunch because there's a whole lot of explanation and that needs to be put forth from the community. We have to decide, first of all, what we want to do with that information, and then how we want to proceed, and then how we get that disseminated to the community. So I guess, and having run referendums in the past, I know it takes much longer than what you would probably think. So I think the timing is unique. I also think that, or is important. I also think that, that this company does know us and knows what we have. And so that I would presume there's gonna be a little bit of cost savings in there that's already been built in because they don't have to do the additional research and history. As far as the survey return, I questioned the amount of return as well. But if I remember correctly, that 6% wasn't out of the range of what they would have anticipated. Is that correct?
It was not, and we.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So is it great? No. Can we presume one way or another about the people that responded and the people that didn't? I don't think so. But what all we can do is go with the information that we did get, and those people, by and large, there was a great interest in having additional services. So that's all we're doing is looking into it, and I think that is our responsibility, is to look into it. And then with that information, we put together a plan and we put it out to the community, whether they want to or they don't. And that's what we're doing. I think that we're on the right path to, again, I think this is a unique situation. Typically, I would want to go out for a competitive bid, but I think this is unique.
Thank you. Alderman Curry.
Just a further comment on the survey. Well, I guess I'd have to go back and look at the video. I don't think it was real, the presenter was real staunch that the 6% was a good number. And like I said, anybody can look it up, like I just Google it, what are external surveys? Normal returns are 10 to 15%, so we're half that. And then again, 407 people, so we paid over $100 a survey, I guess, to get it back, $40,000 for the survey, and we can only get 400 back. And of that, half of them only half of them answered a lot of the questions. And of that half, in the case of the indoor pool, for example, I believe, and I may be mistaken, but I believe the percentage was like 45% showed an interest in the pool. So now we're down to, 100, call it 150 if you want, people. And we're going to base our strong community interest based off of those 150. And I guess I'm just struggling with that.
I would say it's not just off of those 150, but we have over 2,000 members that are asking for additional amenities. That's roughly 10% of our population when you look at just numbers. I can't tell you that every one of those members is a resident versus a non-resident. The bulk of our members are residents.
But you have 2,000 members who are asking for it, but you only have 400 surveys returned, so what happened to the 2,000 then?
Well, it wasn't a direct mailing to those members. That would slant the survey to not what we want.
No, I understand.
Survey.
It was just a point. I haven't actually run into anybody yet that's even gotten the survey, but I've asked friends of mine. Nobody. I don't know if anybody on council got it. When I asked that question last time, three other council members said they didn't receive the survey. So I don't know how we could send to 6,500 homes, which is pretty much the whole city. And yet, at least half of us sitting here didn't even get one. To me, it just does not appear that we got a really great, we got a nice packet that was presented, but it doesn't look like we really got a great return for our investment there on a survey. I am unconvinced that there is a strong community desire. If I was convinced of that, I wouldn't be saying that. Well, maybe that's true, but I don't think that we have shown that. And so for that, and of course in this case, the smaller issue that I had in this particular case was the competitive bidding. That I still think anything we do should be competitively bid unless it can't be, unless there's no reason. So anyway, that's just, again, I look at what we got, and I make draw my own conclusions from that. Others draw different conclusions, I guess.
I think, to that point, I guess I just would add that our only way to truly know if it's something that they want is to ask them. And this allows us, I shouldn't say this, the process of a referendum, as unpopular as it can be, it puts it truly in their hands to say, you can vote this yes or no, and it's in your hands. We're not doing anything other than letting you decide on if this is something that you want or don't want.
Alderman Condon?
Yeah, just one more comment about the, I did ask if specifically for this type of survey, the response. So I'm sure, I'm not a statistic person, which I know you're much more knowledgeable in statistics, Alderman Curry, but, and I see myself more as a people person, but, so that's what I rely on hearing from the people. I'm not saying that you didn't, but I know you're going by the statistics. But I asked specifically, is this a return rate for this type of survey? Now, I believe your statistics on Google, but that's in general. The question I asked of that expert was, is this a normal rate for this type of survey? And I was told that it was within what they would expect. So, does that still tell us one way or another? No, not necessarily. But the bottom line, and I agree with Director Hobson, is that because there has been a significant amount. What is significant? I don't know. There's, of those 2,000 members, I don't know how many, nor does anyone really, because it was random, got the survey. And but there has been discussion, and it has been brought to us to inquire about it. So I feel that it is our responsibility to pursue looking into what it would cost, what are the specifics that, what it would cost to build, what it would cost to run, does the community want it? And then it's in the hands of the community to decide, not just the 7 of us.
Alderman Schaefer.
I agree. I know Alderman Condon wasn't here for that presentation, I don't think, but.
No, but I heard it
and he did answer affirmative to that for this type of survey, for his type of analysis that he does for this type of thing, that was in the realm of normal. I do agree that, we would love to have more. I do also agree that I think this is more of a timing essence than we think, because Bill, correct me, but we have to, it's not, August is really the date we have to be saying we're gonna do it or not, doing a referendum or not. It's not that November date.
It's not, November's the actual election date. We need to decide, this is our ballot measure, we're voting on this ballot measure to be placed on the ballot.
And the terminology and all that. So if you wait 90 days, that means we only have 90 days. I mean, because I think we want to know by June if we're going to do this. So I think there is, that's why I agree with moving forward with this, because timing is more of an essence than you look at. If we look at that November date, I would say, yeah, that we would have time to do that. But when you look at the August date, I think it's more appropriate.
Thank you. Any other discussion? At this time, I'll open up to public input. Is there anyone from the public that would like to make a public comment on this item? I see none. At this time, I'm looking for a motion to authorize a budget amendment in the Recreation Center Fund in the amount of $19,500 and approve a professional services agreement with Heller & Heller Consulting, LLC to perform an aquatics feasibility study for the McHenry Recreation Center in the amount of $19,500. Alderman Schaefer?
I'll make that motion as you just presented.
Thank you. Alderman Devine, for a second. Any other discussion on this item? Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Schaefer?
Yes.
Alderman Devine?
Yes.
Alderman Curry?
No.
Alderman Mahavik?
Yes.
Alderwoman Condon?
Yes.
Alderman Glad?
No.
Alderman Santee?
No.
Thank you, Council. The next item on the agenda is discussion to authorize a budget amendment in the amount of $64,440 from the general fund balance and approve a professional services contract change order to include the downtown parking access capability capacity improvements project to the professional services agreement for the McHenry Recreation Parking Lot Expansion Project with Baxter and Woodman Incorporated for the amount to not exceed $64,440. Director Schmidt, can you please present this item?
Thank you, Mayor. Staff requests City Council to consider a budget amendment in the amount of $64,440 from the general fund balance for the downtown parking access capacity improvement project. And and approval of a professional service contract change order to add this project to the professional services agreement for the recreational center parking lot expansion with Baxter Lumber.
Thank you, Mr. Schmidt. Discussion on this item by council? Alderman Santi.
Yeah, just like item E, this is coming to us as a unbidded process. But I guess the only way to say this is that I'm just gonna step up and make the statements right now, is that, you know, we've heard about surveys tonight, we've heard about garbage cans, you know, we've heard multiple issues in the city, concerns from our constituents, and one of the issues that I've heard prior to even having a driver's license in this town is, and I won't say spaces here, I'll say parking issues. And we finally have brought this to our level. It's just taken much too much time to get it where it's at right now. And even though the fact is, if, you know, I've always stated, you know, I want competitive bids, but I think this is something that I've wanted or have seen or have just discussed for 20 years in town, at least. And it's not, you know, once again, I'll say it's issues. I'm not saying spaces per se here, but the park lighting is terrible. You can't see a thing around that park at night. We have parking lots that are available to people that could cause damage to vehicles just because of how they're maintained right now. Lighting, signage, people have no idea where they're at. And even though there are some pieces to this pie that were presented tonight, I'm not overly excited about, and may not be my first choice personally, but we just do need to attack this and put this into motion. You know, I got the impression of hearing rush on other agenda items tonight. Well, this is way past that, at least that's the way I look at it. And I guess the only question I have is that if this is approved tonight, do these projects come back to the council in regards to individual, you know, once we have numbers where we're going, and that's the way, I'm sorry, but that's the way I want to see it. I want to see these numbers individual. I want to see what it's going to cost to redo that parking lot. The best description I can say is behind the gambler. Just hypothetical, okay. What's it going to cost for the lighting around the park? What's it going to cost for that Court Street garage? I mean, I'd like to see those individually, and I want to see us voted on those things individually, because that's where I have a little concern. But other than that, you know, it's in regards to parking and just maintaining and lighting. And like I said, it's an issue to me. I'm not going to say spaces, but it's just a parking issue, and how everybody on this board, how everybody in the audience defines convenient parking is their own perspective, because I know we do have different definitions of that. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
I'll just answer that while you ask the question, Alderman Santi, about the ability of council to review the projects. Yes, as you recall from 2 weeks ago, the report was presented as in tier, and tier 1 included this design engineering. Tier 2 basically had the list of projects with, I call them swag numbers in there, just based on our own information or ability to provide some numbers to council to give you some idea of what it could be. All of those projects that were identified in Tier 2 will be a part of the capital improvement program discussion. We're actually creating a separate, within the street, sidewalk, and signals section of the capital improvement program, we'll actually have a separate project category that's downtown parking improvements, capacity and access. That will have all the Tier 2 projects in there. Council will have the ability, based on the design engineering, the numbers and the time frames that are provided to us, to say, these are the projects that we would like to try to include in the FY 18-19 budget and beyond, and be able to prioritize those and again, direct staff to try to include those projects in the budget. So yes, you'll have an opportunity to not only discuss the category and the issue of downtown parking, but review and approve or not approve, or direct us to include or not include specific projects from Tier 2 and the CIP and beyond in the budget.
Thank you very much, I appreciate that.
Any other discussion by council on this? Alderman Curry.
Yes, when we discussed this prior, the parking capacity improvements, which are there's two of them on here. There's the 33 spaces Riverside Drive, South Riverside Drive, and there's the 22 spaces on, which is where the city building is now, correct?
Yes.
Port Street. Okay. If I remember them, and I know they were just really swag numbers at the time, but if I remember the numbers at that time, the engineering costs for those two areas were $15,000 on one and $35,000 on the other, for $50,000. I guess my question is, first question anyway, is of the $64,000 that we're talking about now, how much of that is for the capacity improvement, the 55 spaces in other words? How much of the engineering cost?
Dan Schuck from Baxter Road is here. Dan, do you have that breakdown? Yeah.
Good evening. We did not include a breakdown in the actual amendment to the contract. However, the numbers that we reviewed from city staff indicated, I believe, $15,000 per parking lot, and then another $35,000 for the overall lighting improvements. So the capacity improvements would be $15,000 per parking lot.
So $30,000 for these two. Okay.
Correct.
So that was the first question. And as we talked, thank you for that. So without the capacity improvements, we'd be looking at a $35,000 engineering project.
Yes, give or take.
Okay. You know, from our discussion last time, you know, my feeling is that you know, we're talking about Tier 1, we're adding 50% more parking spaces with the lease agreements we were talking about. I don't know that we know where, if and where we need additional parking spaces. And so I'm just a little confused what our rush is on engineering for parking spaces that we don't necessarily know that we need or need in the right places, because we don't have any idea that what the utilization is of the current parking that we have. So I just don't understand, talk about, you know, the rush. I don't understand the rush to do that, number one. Next question I guess I have is that this is an add-on to the project that was the expansion of the rec center parking lot, correct?
Correct.
How much is the engineering cost on that? What was the original contract on that?
$29,000.
So we're gonna take a $29,000 contract and we're gonna do a budget amendment on it for more than twice what it was originally. And without going out again for competitive bids, which we all agreed to do back a year or so ago when we talked about engineering. And again, we found out that when we go out for competitive bidding, we tend to get better pricing. Now I understand Baxter Woodman came in on that particular project and was certainly was the low bidder. They got the project, and very possibly they would be again. But again, we don't know that. We went years assuming that engineering firm was going to give us a better price, and we found out different. So again, here we are on something that I don't see as a rush. I mean, if we could get Baxter Woodman to do a quote for us in a couple of weeks or less than a couple of weeks, I'm not really sure why we couldn't have sent that out for bids to we had 4 engineering firms that quoted originally on the we sent it out to 7. We had 4 that returned originally on the rec center parking, and yet we don't send this out for competitive bids, and it's twice as expensive. Again, I don't understand it. We should be getting, we're spending taxpayer money, we should be getting competitive bids whenever we can. And we have, it was the whole thing when we created the pool of qualified firms, was that we would get competitive bids on projects from that pool of qualified firms. And the only exception to that time was the ones that involved federal road funding, because it was such an onerous process. So again, I just have a problem that we're looking at capacity increases that we haven't really fully identified, and B, we haven't got competitive bids on the engineering. I'm all for improving the lots we have. Lighting, paving, curb, whatever it is, for the parking lots that we currently have. But adding capacity when we don't know where we need that capacity, I'm struggling with.
I'll address both of those. I'll start with the capacity one, because you'd also brought up at the last meeting, and that's what I took away from that. I think staff did, the need to do some type of analysis of the parking. So last week and today, we were able to get together, Mayor Jett and Director Schmidt and I with Chief Burke. Basically, I pulled a couple other communities' parking analysis, one just to the west of us, that I know that they had a parking analysis done that we would like to have had done, but it costs money, back in 2008. So I pulled that, took a look at their methodology for how they looked at peak demand, peak usage, and lot car counts and percentages of use and all that stuff. And in our discussions, we identified that if we took a look at different times of the day, a lower usage, a higher usage, evening time, through the weekday, also on Friday nights, and then a day on the weekend, that we could get some idea at least of we've already broken down the zones. We did that with the discussion last time on Riverside, Green, and Main Street. However the boundaries are established, at least we kind of have something in our heads now for those. So to try to get an idea of it, there are different times of the day and different days of the week, including evenings and weekends, what the percentage usage is of both lot spaces and on-street parking spaces within each of those zones. So in our discussions, Chief Burke was able to come up with a way to analyze that and take a look at it. Actually, we're going to look at it for a 2-week period, every day for a 2-week period, instead of just one day, isolated day during the week, and one evening and one weekend day. We'll look at it for a 2-week period. In fact, we can start as early as next Monday to take a look at that. And then they'll run the numbers spreadsheet, and we'll have some idea of, this lot on Riverside Drive at these times of the day and these days of the week, is the capacity is 100 spaces, and the most it's ever used is 60%, and that's at 6 o'clock in the evening or whatever. So at least we have some idea from a capacity standpoint of what we're talking about. I think, outside of having a parking firm come in and do more of analysis from us, I think using the methodology that we were able to identify from other communities will give us at least a better handle on what the capacity usage of our lot, what the usage of our lots is compared to the capacity. So that's the one aspect of it that we're ready to start right away. And it's going to be good to have, whether we need it for this specific thing or not, to know those numbers. From a just to say something on staff's behalf in terms of the competitive bidding, and I completely understand that and the process that council went through and we've gone through to come to that conclusion. from a staff standpoint, there seemed to be some desire on the council standpoint to want to do something in the downtown. We've had a couple discussions over the last 2 months about specific to parking, and there seemed to be some desire to move quickly to make something happen with the parking. And from a staff standpoint, you know, to choose to do whatever obviously council wants to do in terms of capacity or just access improvements, we were just trying to be responsive from a staff standpoint and give us the fastest route to being able to come up with some design engineering numbers that we could then use as part of the upcoming capital improvement and budget discussions, and have more real numbers about what it would cost to do access improvements or lot improvements, to be able to have that discussion as part of the CIP and budget. So really, you know, again, we're just trying to be responsive to where we thought council was going. So if that meant not going through a formal proposal process that would have taken 45 or 60 days to go through it, we were just trying to be responsive and not trying to shortcut it because we wanted to give the business to Baxter and Woodman. We were just trying to be responsive to be able to get something done sooner than later.
Yeah, well, thank you for that, and I appreciate both of those comments. You know, in the study you're talking about, I think would go a long ways to you know, as far as the concerns on the capacity issue. Because again, you know, with the leases we're talking about, because, you know, the one area on Court Street there, that's probably going to more likely, even though I know it's a different boundary that we drew, but it's more likely going to service, if you will, Green Street. And as is the lease agreement that we're talking about for behind the bank there. And so I guess it seems to me that if we're going to do those lease agreements, and we're going to increase our total parking, you know, over the city by 50% or close to that, why we wouldn't wait to see if it's necessary. So I guess that's the one thing. And so I look forward to seeing the capacity study, but I'm not personally interested in spending engineering money until we see that. As far as the competitive bidding go, you know, I think all these firms are pretty good, and I think if you sent it out to them and said you got 2 weeks to get it back to me, they get it back to you. That's apparently what way Baxter was able to do it, and I commend them for that. But I think that, you know, we could have gotten and can get competitive bids more quickly than what you're indicating. And I don't really see that, and of course, since we haven't done that, now we're a little further behind. But again, this is something that, you know, we as council discussed some time ago about getting competitive bids, and it's a pretty straightforward thing, and I think that's certainly what I would like to see.
On with that.
Yeah, I just wanted to state pretty much that number one, the choices that we were given on those tiers, I thought tier 1 was probably the most responsible pick to take. However, it doesn't mean I'm in agreement that we do all at tier 1 right away. And I think it isn't just what the utilization is of the city parking, but what is the underutilization. And I think what we need is we definitely need to make sure that we get the parking areas we have now. And I brought this back up in the spring as far as making the parking areas more receptive to a regular constituent that goes down to the downtown area to where they feel comfortable parking there and making use. And I know some of the ideas that have been brought up lately, I agree with 100% as far as what needs to be done. But I think to some extent we need to make sure that we make it as accommodating of what we have right now, as accommodating to the customers that come down to the downtown area or the visitors to the downtown area before we make a decision on making anything major. And by that, yes, we have to do the lighting. we definitely have to fix up the parking lots. It does concern me, the fact that we're talking that kind of dollars as far as engineering. And as our administrator said, that, oh, you know, we're in a big rush. Well, you know, I was talking about this in the spring. 3 months ago, I kept hearing from several different aldermen how there were no parking problems. 2 months ago, we finally decided, yeah, maybe there were. The mayor found out that there could have been some problems. We got the Marin Angel parking now that could have possibly lost that, being that it's up for sale. And those were kind of some of the things I kept saying. But I think to some extent, I would have liked to see competitive bids. We need to move forward. We don't have to run on it. I mean, the land isn't going anywhere, let's put it that way. I would like to see just improvements in what we have and then see where we go from there. And I caution council with the fact that just because we have the Marin Angel property under lease, again, that's still just a possibility of a 90-day cancellation. We still need to focus to make sure that the parking that we have for the downtown area that we control is adequate for the future. And I think that's what we need. And it doesn't mean we have to acquire it tomorrow, but it means that we need to have game plans to make sure that down the road we're planning, and when maybe when the timing is right, certain properties become for sale or whatever that are the best bang for our buck, maybe that's when we jump on it. But we need to have a game plan so we're ready to make those moves when we go.
Alderwoman Condon?
And I apologize because I wasn't at the discussion, although I did have a conversation with Mayor Jett about the parking. And I don't know if this was just, so I don't know if this was discussed, but I also, while I agree with most of everything that's been said, I think the lighting is important, and having moving forward with potential parking, although I love the idea that internally we're gonna be able to do some assessments. The one part that I feel like is missing, and I know that wouldn't necessarily be a part of this, what's before us tonight, but is signage. Because I think there are more parking spaces that we do have than what the community recognizes and realizes. Now, some of them are in spots that are dark and people may not feel safe parking, so that lighting is essential. But just signage that to identify for the average community member that, you know, this is designated parking, this is designated parking. I think that is really important as we move forward. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you. Any other discussion by council? Alderman Sands?
No, I applaud Alderman Curry. He's got some, you got great points. They're right on the money. And because I'm just fighting with myself on this because, you know, the way I look at this, and you know what Alderman Glad brought up about, you know, last spring for, you know, maybe last spring 17 years ago too. I mean, to be honest with you, it just, you know, just
It's
looking
fine,
at
but
this.
Alderman Santee, half of what's being recommended is what I brought up back last spring.
And
But everybody said we didn't have the problems with it.
And you know, and I didn't have to be sitting on this council to see this issue many years ago, but I just, it's in front of us tonight. We can move forward. This is not a perfect document, that's for sure. So, but I you know, for the city, just stepping out there, I want to move forward on this. And I have one other question from City Administrator Moorfield. You brought up the two-week period. Is there a window to that during what are we talking about in that 2-week period? Are we talking 24/7?
Yeah, if I can comment. We were gonna start this on Sunday, December 10th, and run it through Saturday, December 23rd. What we'll do is we'll identify the 3 downtown areas that have already been defined through the tiers at the November 20th council meeting. We selected 3 times each day that the police department will conduct a count on those utilized spaces in each zone and separate between street parking and parking lot parking. The times that each count will occur between 9 a.m. and 10 a.m., 1 p.m. and 2 p.m., and 6 p.m. and 7 p.m. on every single day for those 14 days straight. And then what that'll enable us to do is be able to run a report for you guys, and we'll be able to show the used and open space numbers, the percentage of usage for lots and on-street parking for specific times and specific days. We'll be able to identify specific days of weeks for percentage used, specific times of day for percentage usage, and then average weekend percentage used. And then you'll be able to hopefully be able to see the low and the peak times for the parking issues that are going on there.
Thanks, yeah, I wanted to know those hours. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you. Alderman Glenn?
I commend the fact that the police department is willing to do these surveys and everything else. But again, we need to look at that percentage-wise as the fact that at that time of the year is not the busiest time for our downtown areas. Because the summer months, the nicer months is when we get it the most. And I'm not saying we don't take the survey, don't get me wrong, but all I'm saying is when we do look at that we do kind of, and I don't know what the percentage would be, but maybe we can get some kind of a handle from some of the businesses of what kind of traffic at night they get in the nicer months of June and July than they get in October, November, December. Just so that when we do, get those reports that we can analyze them and not just take them verbatim of what that is, because different seasons have different traffic. So
I think we could, and I'm speaking for Chief Burke, but I think we could probably do another one in the summertime.
That would be the best way to do it for, we didn't feel it would be appropriate to wait till the summer, obviously, we're not concerned for the parking, but.
I mean, it's a start, I understand.
We have a baseline, we can compare it to the summer months.
Yeah, we talked about school being out on Christmas break, so we wanted to get it done before that to make sure that there wasn't any school parking issues that would not be impacted in the study. We talked about summer months. So, and realistically, the police see a higher parking volume in the evening hours during winter months, actually than summer months. More people go to the restaurants and the bars in the business district when weather is poor, rather than when weather is good.
Plus the restaurants and the bars that bring the biggest amount of traffic. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And not just our downtown area, I mean most downtown areas are like that. So.
Thank you. Alderman Curry?
So you're gonna do this circuit again, like I said, I think that's a good thing, and we're gonna take a look at that. You're gonna do this, you said up to, your 2 weeks ends on December 23rd?
Yeah, through Saturday, December 23rd.
So is it reasonable then that we could see some results by our meeting in January?
For sure.
All right, so we're talking about basically a little over a month out, call it 5 weeks or so. I guess, again, I'm not minimizing the problem or problems that exist. On the other hand, as Alderman Santi indicated, it's been an issue for 20 years or more, and it's been, even more recently, it's been months and months that there's, for us to wait another 5 weeks to potentially determine where our capacity issues are, rather than jumping with. I have no problem again with the other tier 1 things, which are the least things, because those aren't permanent things anyway. We go ahead and we do those things, but I don't understand the rush. And in that time period, if we wanted to get competitive bids, we could do so.
Thank you. Any other discussion by council? Alderman Glenn?
Yeah, because this is only the first phase of the tier 1. Just again, we're looking at construction costs, and then we're looking also that, we're looking at engineering, just kind of wonder what kind of ballpark figure we're gonna be looking at for engineering as, on the construction itself. Because this is just more of the feasibility and everything else. So I just want to throw that out, just so we're not looking and saying, oh, you know, we're gonna fix our parking problems with this, because it's just the beginning. So.
Any other discussion by council? Moving to the public for public input. Bill, if you can come on up.
This is fun. Since I own a building at 1309 Green, I walk there from my house quite a bit. And on Thursdays when there's music playing, then the traffic it's horrendous. There's Friday nights that there's parking is, but that's during the summer months. Right now, because I walk, doesn't matter to me, because I get my dogs, and parking has been a lot less. You know, because I can see the movement, and I see when Smith has a whole bunch of stuff going on down there, and there's congestion. You know, Riverside has gotten busy with Bimbo's getting busier and stuff like that, and then with the bakery, you know, with that parking alley where the bakery's at and stuff. But I mean, if you walk it, you can see what's going on. You know, where the parking is and where it needs to be. You know, that's all I gotta say about it. But I mean, summer months I've always seen more people going out, walking, because you can sit there in my building and watch the people go by. I have tons of people there in the summer, and right now I have nobody. They're driving wherever they're gonna go. And they're gonna go look for a spot or a restaurant that has bigger parking lot.
All right, thank you, Phil. Any other discussion by the public? Seeing none, at this time, looking for a motion to authorize a budget amendment in the amount of $64,440 from the general fund balance and approve a professional services contract change order to include the downtown parking access capacity improvements project to the professional services agreement for the McHenry Recreation Center parking lot expansion project with Baxter and Woodman Incorporated for the amount not to exceed $64,440. Alderman Santi.
I will make that.
Alderman Devine. Any discussion by council? See none, clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Santi,
Yes.
Alderman Devine,
Yes.
Yes.
Alderman Schaefer,
Yes.
Alderman Curry,
No.
Alderman Mahavik,
No.
Alderman Condon.
Yes.
Thank you, council. At this time, I'll go ahead and turn it over to our attorney, McCardle, to handle the next two items.
Right, so the next two items involve the mayor's own project. He had called me on these earlier last week and indicated obviously how to handle the procedure of it, and I gave him the options. The first option was to don't do anything. He has the absolute right to run the meeting as is for the two items, even though he's the object of it, and of course he didn't want to do that in order to maintain some objectivity on the City Council's discussion of it. The second option I suggested was if if the council has questions, then he would remove himself from the meeting, either literally and sit in front of you, or physically move out of the room. And I said the most objective thing you could do was to move out if you had someone else speaking for you. He does. He has an attorney here, Tom Zank. He's the last guy in the last row with the gray hair. And I meant the gray suit. That's what I meant. So Tom's here to answer your questions. So in the end, I suggested, just from a procedural standpoint, I would leave it up to the City Council as to your preference, whether you would rather have the mayor here physically, whether it's in this seat, it doesn't matter, or whether he's in front of you or at the podium, I guess, to answer questions, or would you prefer him to leave the room in order to speak more freely about it? And I would told him I would take a majority of the City Council, and then we'll go from there as far as who runs the meeting.
All I was going to say is the fact that whatever we say out here is recorded anyway, so I mean, just feel the most comfortable way is probably for the mayor to sit out there. And again, if there are any questions,
So there's one.
and again, it's more of not my concerns of anything other than other people's concerns that they might say are impropriety. That's all.
Anyone else have an opinion about that?
Just, so he's gonna be present, but I'm comfortable with him either being seated there or wherever.
Yeah, well, it makes more sense that he'd be out there. I know it's a little awkward, but we'll do it. Anyone else have an opinion, or do they agree?
I agree.
Yeah,
Everyone agree?
I just think, as was just said, for perception purposes, I think it probably is appropriate that.
Does anyone think the mayor should leave the room? Okay, so one of you stand at the podium, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to say that. As far as,
I could say he could be down at the Gambler and warm up the seats for us while we're talking. I mean,
and Tom, you can come up here actually. Tom, why don't you come up to the front row there? You can answer questions.
You've been here for a long time, my bill's gonna be
Yeah, I know.
expensive.
We'll run through this quickly. So then the next thing is who runs the meeting. And again, my initial reaction was I'll simply start the discussion by way of introducing the topic and then go through the usual routine, but that's probably not appropriate. We'll keep some formality. So there's a couple of different options. Your city code provides some language for a mayor pro tem and an entity called the acting mayor. The acting mayor doesn't apply from your city code because that actually means where there's a vacancy in office. And the mayor pro tem is confusing because by state law, which you can follow or you don't have to follow, there's a mayor pro tem. Both mayor pro tems in the city council and in the city code and in the state statute presume a transfer of power when there's a mayor pro tem, where the acting person, the mayor pro tem, actually has the power of the mayor to sign documents and totally act in the capacity of mayor. That's really not what we're looking for because he's standing right here and he'll be here after the two items are completed. But there is a provision in the state law that calling for the position of temporary chairman, who simply acts as the presiding officer for that meeting in the absence of the mayor, which is pretty much what we're talking about here. So my suggestion from trying to fit this into a category that works is to have a motion by the city council to appoint a temporary chairman for these two agenda items only and see if that goes with the city council. And it doesn't, some people, I won't go any further. Is there a motion, Alderman Sandy? Or you want to discuss it first? That's usually what you do.
No, I don't know, from previously viewing this from the audience standpoint, my perspective, I would just have the most senior alderman just take the chair for this process.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
Yeah, that's what I was going to suggest, that was where I was going, but I didn't want to put the thought in my head because somebody thought there was it's in some codes where it talks about the senior alderman or senior board member at a zoning level. And this time it just doesn't address it, so it's really up to you. So if anyone feels compelled, make a motion.
I'll make the motion that the most senior alderman take the chair for the discussions.
Which, according to my recollection, would be Alderman Glad.
Correct.
And I'll second that motion.
So motion second. Any other discussion? And roll call.
Alderman Curry?
Yes.
Alderman Santee?
Yes.
Alderman Glad?
Abstain.
Alderman Schaefer?
Yes.
Alderman Mahavik?
Yes.
Alderman Devine?
Yes.
Alderman Condon?
Yes.
You won. So I always want to see Alderman Glad over here too.
Let's not get carried away. No.
Pass the gavel now.
Yeah, here's the gavel.
Keep my gavel there.
That's the main thing I wanted.
We all know.
Don't hit it
His
too hard,
name's
it's
not
great.
going on. Jeez, I could have used his big screen.
So we're on item 9, is this 9?
9G, yes, yeah.
Okay, so we're at 9G, and it's a motion to adopt an ordinance amending the City of McHenry's redevelopment project and plan for the City of McHenry the tax redevelopment project area by removing this property, commonly known as 1306 North Green Street. And I guess we need a motion from council to do that. Alderman Santee, you had your hand up?
No.
No? Alderman Schaefer? Were you ready to make that motion? Or?
Is there to be a brief explanation from staff on this or anything, or
Well,
are we all set?
yeah, I probably should do that.
Okay.
This really involves me a little bit more.
Okay.
So we have a downtown TIF area, and that downtown TIF area was created in some earlier year in the 2000s, and it has a geography to it. And this property that Wayne Jett company would like to develop and buy is located at 1306 North Green Street, which lies within that TIF boundary. And the law within the tax increment financing district states that no elected official, no local elected official may acquire property after the boundary is established. I don't really know why it says that, and you think it would be an advantage, but that's the rule. The only way to get it, well, there are several ways to get around it since your home rule, but the best way to get around it is to remove the property from the TIF area, and then that eliminates that problem, and then you can go on to the next agenda item. To do that, the procedure is fairly straightforward from a technical standpoint. You simply need to adopt an ordinance and then publish that after the ordinance is adopted, removing the property. Then you notify the taxing districts and you publish a notice in the newspaper all within 10 days following the action. In order to keep this an open item, we actually, as I told you in a cover letter that I sent you earlier, I sent a written notice to all the taxing bodies that were originally part of the creation of the TIF. I gave them a map. I told them what the intent was. I said we were going to present this to you tonight. I invited them to be present. I don't know if they're here or not, to give a comment or take a position on it. I've not heard from anybody. I don't believe the staff has heard from anybody. But that was pre-notice, that wasn't required, and so we should check on that to see if anyone's here. Otherwise, it's just simply a discussion for the council to take action on with public comment if they have any. So if you have any questions for me, I'm good.
Otherwise, now that we've got the presentation for you, I would look at any discussion by council on this. Alderwoman Condon.
I think it's been fairly well presented by Attorney McCardle, and the fact of the matter is that it's a good thing that the mayor is moving his businesses back into the community, and in order to do that, legally, this is what we need to do, so I think it makes sense, and I'm glad he's moving his businesses here.
Alderman Santee.
If this passes, how does this affect the other taxing bodies? Do they go through this also?
I think we should ask Director Moorfield.
Yeah, well, then David can participate in this too, but we're the ones that established the TIF. Yeah, we had to have the approval of the other taxing bodies. Basically what this does is it puts that property fully back on the tax rolls.
So benefit.
Right, yeah, and it's basically, it's like literally picking up and moving it to some other part of the community.
Exactly.
It doesn't participate as part of the TIF anymore.
Yeah, I would think it definitely would be as a benefit.
And as I can
would see it.
Oh, sure. Was that it?
Yeah, thank you.
All I was going to say is I remember when we created the TIF that basically the council at any time could eliminate the TIF. And so I don't see why we wouldn't be able to eliminate one property, you know, without the taxing body's approval on any of it. So, is there any other discussion from council? As a member of, as an alderman, I do have my own discussion that I can create. And basically, all I was going to say is I feel it's a shame that with the development of this property that we will lose some tax increment funding. However, we are, as well as the mayor, to follow the laws that are in place, and I just think we're doing our due diligence, and I think we need to move forward. And that's all I've got to say, and I just wonder if there were any comments from the public.
And I know everybody here, I believe, except the lady behind the reporting, nobody's here from the taxing districts, correct? Okay. Does he have something?
Nobody? Then I'd entertain a motion. Alderwoman Condon?
I would make the motion to adopt the ordinance amending the City of McHenry's redevelopment project and plan for the City of McHenry tax increment redevelopment project area by removing the property commonly known as 1306 North Green Street.
The second? Alderman Curry?
Second.
Any other discussion? Then can we have a roll call?
Alderwoman Condon?
Yes.
Alderman Curry?
Yes.
Alderman Schaefer?
Yes.
Alderman Devine?
Yes.
Alderman Mahavik?
Yes.
Alderman Santee?
Yes.
Alderman Glab?
Yes. Okay, moving on to H, we need a motion to adopt an ordinance granting a conditional use permit for an expanded site plan review in accordance with the Downtown Overlay District to allow contractor's office with on-site storage and 2 principal uses on 1 zoning lot, and any other variances to allow the property to be developed in substantial conformance with the Planning and Zoning Commission public hearing application for the property located at 1306 North Green Street.
Doug has this one.
Doug?
Thank you, Chairman Club. The applicant is requesting a conditional use permit for an expanded site plan review in accordance with Downtown Overlay District to allow contractor's office with storage on site and 2 principal uses on 1 zoning lot, and any other variances to allow the property to be developed in substantial conformance with the public hearing application submitted for the subject property located at 1306 North Green Street. And I should say this and the previous item are pretty much mutually exclusive from each other. And I'll answer any questions that you may have.
Council have any questions? Any concerns? No? I know I went through it myself, and I really didn't have any problems, other than the fencing around the dumpster, but we won't get into that. Yes, Alderman Curry.
Yeah, just a minor question, I guess. There's comments in here about parking and that you were going to allow public parking there on off hours and so forth. And then there was a comment about most of the vehicles are taken home by the employees. But approximately how many vehicles would be parked there continually? Not that there's a problem with it, but I'm just curious.
So, it's kind of weird actually, we keep about 2 vehicles. We're purchasing a couple more actually before the end of the year here. So it might be a new one that would be there for the next 30 days until, or so. But normally, on any given day, it's 2 vehicles max that will be sitting on the lot. We're actually doing a concrete a ramp into the building, so that way we could get automobiles or cars or vans into the building, which that ramp will be constructed. There's also 2 trailers, 1 enclosed and 1 open bed trailer. And we use those for rooftops and enclosed trailers for sideline sports, which is the memorabilia side of it.
Okay, and just one other question concerning, you mentioned the sideline support. This is basically, for that business, it's pretty much an office, right?
It's an office and storage. That's it. Yeah, that's it.
So
and the reason being is
it's not really an event location for that. Okay, thank you.
I almost said all of
I'm sorry, Alderman Sandy.
It's pretty funny. How many trucks do you normally have on the road on a daily basis?
Right now we have 10, and we're purchasing 2 more, so it'll be 12.
Okay. All right. That's all I wanted. Thanks.
And those are work vans.
Everybody, no other questions from council?
That is a box truck as well.
I'll ask for any comments from, okay, Phil?
Yeah. Oh, boy, better sit down. This is gonna take a long time here. Since I'm across the street. I own 1309, he's at 1306. I was gonna buy that building, as he knows. Right? Yep.
Do you have the gentleman's name and address?
Yeah.
We have.
Okay.
Okay.
I've been through this.
I know, but I just want to make sure that they put it down.
The concerns I have is, I have 1014, it was supposed to be inside storage, and it turned into a mess. Other ones, if you let them go, they turn into a mess. Green Street's supposed to be for the center of town. It's supposed to be beautification and everything else. Outside storage isn't beautiful to look at. I have a building, my buddy Kurt has the other building, he's a friend of mine, has a bar. You're in an area where people are walking, you were complaining about garbage cans, go look at a semi-trailer sitting there. It's not a pretty sight. If it's not enclosed, it can get pretty ugly. I have concerns about that since I have a building across the street. Pat Teasier was gonna come, but he's got some other obligations. But we both talked about it, and he said, we don't need to look at it. Bad enough looking at a parking lot. But, it was the post office, they had inside storage, and I feel that it should stay that way. Because once it gets out of hand, you don't keep a handle on it, and you guys don't have that handle. If you go look at other buildings that have gotten away, Rich Adams is another one, I don't need to look at that thing. So you guys have to look at. I know you won't do that, but it's the next guy, that when he goes to sell it, is the next guy, and that's what I'm running into. Dan Adams sold it, his building to somebody else, and the thing gets into a mess. That's what I gotta say. Thank you, sir. No problem, sir.
Is there any other discussion by council? None, then I would entertain a motion. Alderman Schaefer.
Make the motion for a continued conditional use permit for an expanded site plan review in accordance with the downtown overlay district to allow a contractor's office with on-site storage and 2 principal uses on 1 zoning lot, and any other variances to allow the property to be developed in substantial conformance with the public hearing application submitted for the subject property at 1306 North Green Street.
Second, Alderman Sandy.
I will second the motion.
There's no other discussion, roll call, please.
Alderman Schaefer?
Yes.
Alderman Santee?
Yes.
Chairman Alderman Glad?
Yes.
Alderman Condon?
Yes.
Alderman Devine?
Yes.
Alderman Curry?
Yes.
Alderman Mahavik?
Yes.
Motion approved. I had to do that.
See you, Tom.
Thank you very much.
We got a tough one, Tom.
I have to say,
Wait, I'm falling apart, I gotta get out of here.
Hey, thank you. It was interesting this evening, but I have to say that your attorney really, was on top of this, make sure we didn't stub our foot on this one. He called our attention to the problem, and we certainly really appreciate your addressing it as promptly as you did. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
You sure that wasn't, he isn't your brother-in-law?
Send him your invoice.
Same color hair. Thanks, Tom, I'll pay you later.
All right, moving on, the next item on the agenda is discussion only items. There's none for this evening, so I'm moving to staff reports. Is there any staff reports by staff this evening? I see none. Moving on to mayor and city council comments. I just want to say I appreciate the support in getting this building. I look forward to making this building more of a retail for a heating and air conditioning company, which is not normal. But I will be doing a lot of work to this business, and my goal is to make this building look like a downtown building. I know it's a different use, but I look forward to getting this thing started, and as of Saturday, demo starts. So I appreciate that, and I'll move on to city council comments. Alderwoman Condon.
Well, I know the chamber's presentation was quite lengthy tonight. I just wanted to point out, before I became a chamber member about 5 years ago with my own business, I didn't realize all the things in the community that they are doing and promoting. And I know that there's a lot of coordination with Doug, and I really have to applaud them. I wish Kay was still here, because they're, not only is it just the fun activities for people in the community, and certainly while it's promoting businesses, but they're putting together things, pulling people together, utilizing businesses within the community and making connections, and very charitable as well. And so I just wanted to call your attention, and if you get a chance to go to some of the events that the chamber offers, I really encourage it.
Thank you. Any other city council comments? Alderman Webb?
Yeah, we're talking about Park Street and the 2 hours limit over there. Could we possibly look up in the archives and find out when that was done and why? Possibly the minutes of the meeting when it was approved might bring up different points that we didn't look at as far as the timing, just so that we don't change it and then find out, geez, you know.
You know, when I looked it up earlier during that comment, and I did not look at the date that it was put into effect, but the entire Park Street is the odd man out, other than a small section of Court Street as well.
Well, you know, I can remember back in the early 90s, with the open campus that we had a few different years and everything else, it was like willy-nilly in downtown area, to where the councils were changing times of parking forever. And that's why we have so many different regulations and restrictions down there, or did. So, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other city council comments? See none. Looking for a motion to adjourn the meeting. Second, Alderman Santi.
I'll second.
Clerk, please call roll.
Alderman Curry?
Yes.
Alderman Santee?
Yes.
Alderwoman Condon?
Yes.
Alderman Glab?
Yes.
Alderman Devine?
Yes.
Alderman Schaefer?
Yes.
Alderman Mahavik?
Yes. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
Morning, you said morning?
Evening. It almost, I want to have a good morning. Yeah, pretty much.
My last 60 degrees day.
Yeah, enjoy his time. Yeah, I want to go to the
Yeah.